Today I'm going to show you how to make a peach cobbler. Now the only difference between a cobbler and a pie is the fact that the juice that is around a cobbler is much thinner and there's a lot more of it than there would be in a pie. In a pie you kind of want it to thicken up so you can cut through it and the pieces hold their shape. In a cobbler you don't want it to hold its shape. So we're going to start out with a large can of peach slices, and this is a 29-ounce can. And I'm going to drain the juice off of those peaches. Now we're saving the juice because we'll want to use it later. And then we're just going to place those directly into the pie pan that I have here, which I've already put my raw pie dough in. And then I have a can of apricots, and that is a 15-ounce can. Apricots are really sweet, so you don't need quite as many of those as you do the peaches. And you're just going to kind of evenly scatter them around on your peaches. I prefer to use a fresh peach if I can because they're so much more tender, but in the winter you take what you can get. Okay, we have here about 1.5 cups of juice, and we don't need quite all of that. I'm going to pour off enough of that to where I have only about 1 cup left. Okay, maybe that's a little bit more. Maybe that's about maybe 1.25 cups. And to that I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar and 2 tablespoonfuls of flour. And I'm going to just mix the flour in with the sugar. And the reason I mix the flour in with the sugar first is so that it will dissolve easier in this peach and apricot juice. Otherwise the apricot kind of wants to bunch up and it makes it hard lumpy. And I've also have 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now if you're not a cinnamon lover, you can leave that cinnamon out. That's just an option. And it also is being stirred into the flour mixture and sugar so that we can get it in there good. Then I'm going to start adding it to that peach liquid, kind of stirring as I go. Now you can put this over the heat and actually heat it up if you want to, but I'm not going to. We're doing this the quick way. Just make sure that it's in there good and even, and you can see there's no lumps, no floury lumps, and no cinnamon lumps. I'm going to pour that pretty evenly over my peaches and apricots. And then I'm going to take some butter and I'm going to cut that in thin little slices. And I'm only going to use like 2 tablespoonfuls, but I want it to be really thin. And I'm going to place that then on top of the fruit. Since you're only using 2 tablespoonfuls, you need to kind of evenly distribute it there on your pie. Butter just makes things a little richer. You don't even have to use it, but with all of mine, you'll see I use a lot of butter. Okay, now we're going to take our pie dough that we have pre-made. We made our 2-crust pie dough recipe. We're gonna roll that out. Now, since we have a 13 by 9 pan, instead of making it round, we're gonna kind of make it oblong. You want to make sure it's not sticking. And if you're really precise with this, you can measure it to see if you have about the same length there as what your pie is going to be. I have this neat little tool here, and this is rolled a little thicker than I would normally use it, and that is because I'm going to run this roller right down the center of that pie. Not all the way to the end, just almost. And what that does is it cuts little slits in there. Now when you take your pie dough up and you spread it apart, you've got kind of a pattern in there. And what it does is, if you're really good at it, you can make lattice with it that direction. I'm going to roll this up, put it on top of my pie. Spread that out just a little bit. Okay. And we're going to move those open just a little bit. Now if you move those open, you can see it will make a lattice. I don't want to spend all that time opening them up, so I'm going to leave that just about like it is. I'm going to take my milk. Put just a little milk on top. That's going to help it brown. Make it kind of shiny. Now you can use an egg wash on this if you want. It's just, since this is pie, I'd rather use milk. Make sure you don't have puddles. Okay. Then I'm going to pinch it together a little bit around the edge. And if you want to be really fancy with it, you can. Usually when you're a home cook, cooking for a family, you don't have time to do a lot of fancy stuff. But if you do, that's all good and well. Usually you're trying to balance that with fixing the meat dish and the potatoes, and so when you get to the dessert, it's gonna have to go fast. This doesn't even have to come to the top. Basically what I'm doing is just pinching that together enough to where that it doesn't bubble up and out. Now it should bubble up some here in the center, kind of a little bit, but that'll be okay. Now I'm going to take some of this. It's called sanding sugar. And we're going to sprinkle a little bit of that on the top. And it will make it really, really crisp. And add just a little bit more sweetener to it. You probably don't need much more than a tablespoonful, if that much, for a 13 by 9. I like to be pretty generous. Alrighty, we're going to put that into the oven, 400 degrees, and start out at 35 minutes. Okay. Our pie has been in there, well, I mean our cobbler has been in the oven now for 55 minutes. You can see it's a little toasty around the edge, golden brown, crispy with that sugar. We're going to let this cool, and then we're going to serve it with either ice cream or a nice dollop of whipped cream.
If you enjoy recipes like this, please take a moment to like and subscribe, and we hope that you enjoy this recipe.